Hey there, I'm NatZombieGames, and this is a devlog of how I made my most recent project, an open source password management software built in Godot. I didn't do any concrete planning before starting this project. I'm not the type who likes to set up a massive document and plan everything before even making it. I much prefer to just have a broad idea in mind, start making it, and go from there. So that's how I started this project. I started by setting up what the UI would look like. A top layer I called the hat bar, which is the logo, name, version, and the window buttons. Second layer I called the tab bar, as it is the bar which holds the tab buttons. And the final layer I called app body, where all the rest of the interface goes. After laying out the skeleton of the UI, I went to work on some of the fundamentals of the main script and search functions. For main, I set up the ready function, which resets everything and at the time handled loading any saved data. And search was very simple, as it currently just worked with names, opposed to the final version, which worked with all related data. Cue a lot of fighting with the UI and debugging the shit code, I then moved on to making multiple vital parts of the app. I made a scene to quickly make pop-ups, which can then send the response to whoever was set as their parent, a notification scene to appear near the mouse and tell you whatever I wanted to tell you, and then what I call the info panel, where you can modify the properties of the entries you select, entries being the name for passwords or tags you create. For now, the notification scene is broken, as I was naively using the animation player to try and move it, which did not work at all, as the animation player works using fixed positions, so notification would always be at 00. For now, as I didn't understand this, I ended up moving their containers to themselves as a band-aid fix, which worked, but had the side effect of moving all the old ones you could still see, but I left it for now. Going back to the search, I added the button so you can create your own entries, not just a handful I'd hard-coded, alongside a bunch of general testing and fixing. Afterwards, my focus shifted back towards the info panel as I changed how editing the passwords worked. Opposed to typing in passwords manually, I added this funky little drop-down which lets you generate passwords according to some parameters, that you can also type in whatever you want as well. While working on this, I'm making another scene for a reusable button, called Option Scene. I was messing around in the style box settings and discovered the settings for making the corners round. Now before this, I knew these settings existed, but I assumed they were far more complex, error-prone, and generally uglier. But I turned them on just to see how they look, and yeah, now nearly all of the corners in the UI are round. Anyway, I went to test a new generate password function, which was helped after I realised I never put in the button in order to start said generation, so after putting that in, I got to more testing and fixing. Afterwards, I went to spread the gospel of round corners to the rest of the UI, who were very accepting, don't worry, before moving back to the search, giving it a shortcut using hashtag to search by the entries attached tags, and giving the search result a scroll bar, as I realised people may want to use more than 4 entries at a time. Cue a shit ton more UI faff before I split the search box and the info panel into their own scenes, then intermittent with even more testing and fixing, I added the help tab, where I can put a bunch of info on how the app works, and also some buttons for data management. Added another field for the password entries, allowing you to add a login, username, email, etc. for your entries. I made it so you can right-click on a result from the search in your passwords, and it will copy the password the same way as if it were in the info panel, allowing for quicker searching and grabbing of passwords. Then, you may be noticing a pattern, even more fixing and testing with occasional small changes and tweaks to how stuff works, like adding the ability to search by password or login, being able to remove a tag attached to an entry. Then I started work on the page selector and its respective buttons for replacing the tab bar and for the settings and help tabs, followed by the page content scene, which I used in the help and settings tabs as what displays the information, so this allows for collapsing that section, then for displaying text with optional buttons, which were hard-coded but later use the option scene. Using these new scenes, I went to make the app settings tab, in the process accidentally making the program enter an infinite loop while trying to kill kids. Yeah, so after fixing that, I went and made the tooltip, which I ended up using fairly often, but for now was mostly in the settings for telling the user what stuff did. For now I only have settings for capping the frame rate at 30, and for a low processor, or what I like to call frame efficiency mode. After making the tooltip is more testing and bug fixing, alongside writing stuff into the help tab. Part of that was allowing the user to make manual backup, so I went and modified my saving function to take a custom folder as a parameter. I made a backup function which just calls save with some code to get the current date to set the name. However, while I was working on the page content script, I noticed that the name of the variable for the main text was daft, so I went to change it. You might be able to tell where this is going. Oh, for fuck, it got rid of all of those, damn it. Oh, and it would have... Oh, fuck. Oh, damn it. Is it all gone? Oh, damn. Fuck. Oh. Why do you have to go and do that, man? I spent so long writing that. For fuck's sake. Yep, I love programming, why do you ask? So after a bit of reflection and holding back tears, I went to work on another setting I would add, an auto backup, which would prompt you every however many days when you next open the app if you wish to make a backup. At first I tried to use the date from the system clock and doing a bunch of complicated stuff to figure out the amount of time had passed, but then I remembered that the Unix epoch exists, and thank fuck it does, because without it, time shit would be so much more annoying. Now I don't need to worry about messy human things like leap years, months of varying lengths, fucking leap seconds, because those are a thing where you can have 61 seconds in a minute, because fuck you, that's why. Nah, all I need is the amount of days we want to check for, multiplied by 86,400, which is on average how many seconds are in a day, and boom, we can check if that plus the time the user last opened the app is less than or equal to the current time, and we know at least how much time has passed. Without this, I just wouldn't deal with time at all in programming. So as long as you don't change the time on your PC to some daft number like before 1970 or before you last opened the apps, this should work just fine. Anyway, enough sucking off the epoch. As the data management and main script as a whole grew more complicated, I decided to move it into its own auto-load scene, and after moving everything over to using the new data manager instead of main. I also wanted to add encryption as an option for your saved data. At the start I went back and grabbed my own version of a Caesar cipher. For those of you who don't know, a Caesar cipher is one of the oldest and simplest encryption methods. You go through each letter and move them along the alphabet a certain amount of times. So if you took the name Bob, you could shift all the letters forward one place in the alphabet to get CPC. This is not very secure for three reasons. 1. You can easily brute force these algorithms with simple scripts to shift all the letters until you get something legible, but the smarter way is to work your way through the alphabet by the most common letters. For example, in English that would be E, A, R, I, O, and so on. So you can go through the letters and find the most common ones and replace them until you get something legible. This doesn't always work, but if you're smart enough, you can crack it fairly easily. 2. The same two letters will always be the same. So a B will always shift to, in reference to our old example, a C, which we can grab words with repeat letters and then try to figure out based on length and any possible context what that set of double letters could be. And 3. In the modern day you have the issue of the alphabet. If I make this to only work on the English alphabet, plus some special characters and numbers, and someone who speaks, Japanese comes along, then hardly anything would be encrypted, as my algorithm can't handle kanji, or a million other characters. So unless I went through the entire character map, which I am not, fuck that, then a vast majority of data would be unencrypted. My version aimed to tackle both the first and second issue, but on top of the traditional go through the characters and shift them along the alphabet, I had 2 additional steps which would shift characters an additional time based on their position in the message. So this makes the same characters when unencrypted be multiple different ones when encrypted. Now I didn't do anything about the third issue, mine just ignore characters not in the program's alphabet, but this is still more secure than your bog standard Caesar cipher. Which was good enough for me until I found that Godot for both normal files and config files have built-in encryption using AES 256, which is the industry standard for data encryption even used by militaries around the world, which is just a little more secure than my dingy little Caesar cipher, so I tried to use that instead. But I kept running into error after error, which I eventually found out was an error 16, file corrupt error. I had no clue how to get around this, and my ask on the forums yielded nothing, so... Okay. It's been 2 days of having to post stuff. I just, posted it on the weekend, and then at the start of the weekend, took the weekend off. Of getting the reading of the data to work, because it was failing at a 16 corrupt. There it was, yes. Error 16 file corrupt. Now, nobody's replied, and I still have no clue what the fuck that even means. So there are, I see, well, 3, but really 2 options. 1, I don't have encryption as a feature. They're just plain text on your computer, save all the faff and fuss and all that. Or I look into how actual proper encryptions that aren't just shitty Caesar cipher ones work, and I implement it myself. And therefore all the code is mine, and I can fuck around and find out. Okay. Okay, that's all working now. So I made my own. A new algorithm that would be even better, even more secure, and even feature some compression. So the final size is still bigger than the unencrypted size, but we're getting there. So what is this new encryption? I assume you're asking, because everyone else cares about encryption as much as I do. Well, we start with our content. We turn this into a binary representation by first getting the Unicode for each character and getting the binary of that number, separating all of these with spaces. Then if a clusterfuck of numbers are even, we then flip all the bits, turn zeros into ones and ones into zeros, followed by shifting all the bits along by a number of times based on the key. And after that, based on a different bit of the key, we shift again and perform a bit reversal. After that, we then do compression, called bit crunch here, and after that, if a final clusterfuck of numbers are even, we reverse the whole thing. How does the compression work? Well, since you asked so nicely, what we do is we quarter the size by halving it 2 times. The first time we grab a set of 2 characters which start out being a combination of 2 either zeros, ones, or spaces. We then do that again with the characters from the first step, resulting in a string that's a fourth the size of the binary. So this will nearly always be longer than the input. So I converted to using this system for the encryption, as it should work with any string which uses only Unicode characters. This doesn't combat repeating patterns, like those involving forward, slash, and lowercase n will be fairly common, as these files, unencrypted, use new line characters to separate data. So I may update this in the future, but for now, this is good enough for me. For this I made a new scene to appear when opening the app with encrypted data. This gives you 3 chances to put in the correct key before it kicks you out of the app. Now you can then open it again and get all your chances back, but this is more to stop someone as easily setting up a bot to brute force their way in, since this would need to constantly reopen the app. So you can still brute force it, but it would be slightly more annoying and time consuming. So after figuring out how I was making this and all the testing that ensued, I then made the data manager be able to save and read encrypted files. In the process, for some reason, I was trying to decrypt the data on disk, resulting in any failed attempt permanently deleting the data. I realised that was dumb and that we have memory for a reason, so I made it only changed what was in memory opposed to on disk. After at long last finishing the data manager and encryption manager logic, I moved back to the search box. Part of that was adding settings for a case-sensitive and strict search. This is also when I changed from returning the items I found during my search to returning their indexes, since if we return the items and used case-insensitive search, all the results would be lowercase. This is also when I was working on what ended up being the final search algorithm I used, being this nice chunk of code. It's fairly simple. We start by grabbing all the data we need and setting up the basic variables we need. Then if we are in case-insensitive mode, we go through and make everything lowercase. We check if our query is a shortcut, currently just at all. If so, we set our search data to every available index. Otherwise, we check if our query has a certain prefix. So we can see if we want to search through the passwords, logins, tags/attached entries, or the names like normal. And if we did use one of those prefixes, we remove it from our query before searching. Then, if we didn't use a shortcut like at all to get our data, we then check if we are going through our tag/used-by-list or not. Let's say we are going through names, so we're not. So we go down here, for every item in either passwords or tags, depending on what we are searching through, let's say passwords. Then for every item we check either if our query is in the current item, according to the item set, or if it is exactly equal to it. This is depending on if we have strict search enabled. If the condition we want to check is true, we then append the index into our list of results. The code for the list/used-by-half is nearly identical, except we go another layer deep since we want to check every item in an array. Then we empty the search results shown to the user before going through any and all results and instantiate item scenes with the name and tag/used-by-list of the item at that index. I'm sure this isn't the best algorithm, either code-wise or performance-wise, but for the fact I did no research into search algorithms, I'm happy enough with it for now. That was the last major thing I changed. After that was a lot of testing, bug fixing, optimizations, and faffing with the UI. Until right at the end when I finally tried to fix that pesky notification from earlier. Someone was still just moving their container and not moving themselves. I decided to look into it and find out it was the animation player. As I briefly mentioned earlier, the animation player uses fixed positions opposed to relative, so it didn't matter where I put the notification beforehand, it always moves back to 00. I then remembered about tweens, a feature of Godot I'd never used before, which allow you to cleanly interpolate between 2 properties of code. So after reading the docs, I was able to figure out how they work, and then that solved half of the problem. The other half is the fact that the mouse, according to Godot, is on like 3 or 4 different places depending on how you ask it. I'd been using displayServer.mouseGetPosition, which returns the cursor's position in local space, opposed to the place you see it being its position on the monitor. So after finding the way to get to global position, I was able to get it to correctly appear next to the mouse and slowly float up and away. Just like my sanity when trying to find which way Godot wanted me to beg for the mouse position, which you wouldn't think would be annoying, but here we are. Okay, I thought I'd do a showcase to show off how the app looks as I make this video. The version is 1.2, as you can see in the top left here, alongside the name and logo. So yeah, this is when you open the app, this is what you'll see. Window buttons top right. This is the main part of the page with passwords. You can search. Have all the stuff, then I have a couple things already done in here. Same with your tags. You have your app settings. Your help page, which has collapsible titles and stuff. Click into an entry, have all the stuff for the name, login, password. You can open up the password, you can generate new ones very quickly and easily. Put in a length, minimum characters, and you can just go to your heart's content, set it, and copy it there, or you can copy it there. And honestly, yeah, there's not much more to say about the app interface-wise on the face of it. It is not that complex when it comes to how you interact with the app, it's more so the code behind the scenes. But yeah, that is basically about it. Well, here we are at the end of my very first video, so that's exciting. Hope you enjoyed this, at least you seem to have since you made it all the way here. Video production is hard, especially when your voice is as mumbly and inconsistent as mine, but we made it through. I hope to make more projects like this in the future, and my next one is probably going to be a small 24 to 48 hour game type of thing, as I've been itching to make a game after not making one for a while. I was thinking either a tower defense or an idle type game, but we'll have to see. I was hoping if I keep up a series like that for a while, I could even get a good few videos out, since they'll be way faster than this one. Also, I'd like to thank the people on the Godot forums who helped me out whilst making this, especially Picario, who helped me with feedback and bug reporting after the 1.0 release, and Fencer Devlog, who helped me get the Windows icon working with their tutorial. Well, this project has been fun. Learned lots, did lots, lots of new experiences and ideas explored, like using tweens for the first time, same with trying to make something as scalable as I tried with this one. Anyway, enough rambling. This has been NatZombieGames, and I don't have an outro.